This is solving linear equations for Algebra 1. Um, we're going to go ahead and get started with the same example but two different ways. One of the really cool things about algebra is you can solve the same problem differently and you can still get the correct answer, okay? So the first way is probably the most common way is when we see a coefficient out in front, we're going to distribute that. Okay, and so when we distribute that, we're going to multiply it by the k and the negative 3. So we've got 1/5 k minus 3/5, and that still equals that same 3/4. Okay, and now with this, then we can go ahead and solve the way we would normally solve an equation. So we'd add our 3/5 to both sides. Okay, and you're always going to see me write my fractions as improper fractions. To me, it's much cleaner of a way to look at these and to manipulate them and deal with them in math problems. Okay, so I'm always probably going to write them as improper fractions. Some teachers might totally think opposite, but to me, this is a little bit easier. Okay. Now, so we've got a 1/5 being multiplied by a k, so we're going to divide by 1/5. Okay, and we get that k equals 27/4. What a fraction. Okay. Don't write this out as you could write this as 6.75. Means the same thing. Sometimes people will want fractions, or on online assignments it'll say make sure you write it as a fraction or whatever. Okay. Okay, so that's one way that we can solve this problem. Now another way, same problem, is instead of distributing this 1/5, we can just get rid of it. Okay, it's being multiplied by the k minus 3. So to get rid of it, we're going to divide by 1/5 first. Okay, so that leaves just the k minus 3. And then we're left with 15/4. Okay, now we can add our 3. A mistake, and it equals 27/4, or 6.75. Okay, so when we're solving these problems, I'll do it one way or the other. You guys can do whatever you want and maybe do it the opposite way and see if you get the same answer. All right, so we're going to go into just a few short examples of just solving linear equations and kind of the main types of how you would see these. All right, so for this first one, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this. So I'm going to multiply my -6 times my -2x and the -3. Remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, and so now I don't have any parentheses. I can totally go ahead and move forward with solving this. So remember, you do the opposite. We use those inverse operations. And here I'm going to divide by 12. Okay, and we could leave this as 4/12, but we're going to go ahead and simplify this to 1/3. Okay, so we use those inverse operations. This was adding, so we subtracted. We had multiplying, so then we are going to divide. All right, our second example looks a little more intense. We've got parentheses, we've got extra stuff being added over here. Get rid of your parentheses first. Okay, so go ahead and distribute that first. So this would become 2b minus 2, and that equals still 67. Now this is when I like to combine like terms. Find things that are the same and combine them, okay? Both of these have a b in them, and that is a b, not a 6. And then our 9 and our negative 2. Okay, so we can combine those as well. So we've got 3b and 2b. That's going to be 5b plus 7, and that equals 67. Okay, we can subtract. We're going to move on over here to this direction, and we've got 5b equaling 60, and b equals 12. That's a nice even number. Okay, now for our last example. Here we've got fractions, and I know lots of kids and adults don't even love fractions, but don't let them freak you out, okay? Use a calculator. That should be your best friend in math class, okay? Use a calculator. So again, we're going to start with trying to isolate our w. That's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to get whatever our variable is by itself. Right, so first we're going to subtract our 11 over 12. So we've got negative 4/5 is equal to 5 over 24w. Now these are being multiplied. We can, when we divide, we actually multiply by the reciprocal. Again, use your calculator. Do what's easiest for you. Okay, math doesn't have to be my way or the highway. Do whatever you like. I'm kind of running out of room over here, so I'm gonna rewrite the problem. Okay, so we divide by 5 over 24, and that leaves with w equaling, this is crazy, negative 96 over 25. Okay, another thing I see a lot is whenever you get a weird answer like that, lots of people assume they got the wrong answer. You probably didn't. Maybe it's just a weird number. Now sometimes maybe, but don't be afraid when you get kind of an odd number. All right, so just remember your order of operations and doing the inverse. Okay, and this is solving linear equations.